there's a particular kind of wound that doesn't leave scars you can see. It doesn't announce itself. It hides behind a smile, behind success, behind the words, "I'm fine." It's the wound of the child who never got to be one. Picture this. You're 8 years old, maybe 9. While other kids are playing outside, losing themselves in imaginary worlds, you're inside calculating. Calculating moods. Calculating whether today is a good day or a dangerous one. Calculating how small you need to make yourself to keep the peace. You become a student of emotional weather patterns. You learn to predict storms before the first cloud appears. And somewhere in that process, without anyone noticing, childhood slips away. Not stolen in a single moment, but eroded gradually, like sand through fingers you didn't even know were open. Today, we're diving into the psychology behind this experience. Because if you grew up too fast, if you were the responsible one, the caretaker, the emotional support system for people who should have been supporting you, then you need to understand something crucial. The strategies that helped you survive are now the very things preventing you from truly living. Let's talk about what actually happens in the brain of a child forced into premature adulthood. When a young person is repeatedly placed in situations where they must regulate not just their own emotions, but the emotions of the adults around them, we see something psychologists call role reversal or parentification. But it's more than just a role. It's a complete reorganization of neural pathways. The developing brain, which should be learning through play, through security, through age-appropriate challenges, instead becomes wired for threat detection. Your amygdala, the fear center of your brain, becomes hyperactive. Your prefrontal cortex, which handles complex decision-making, gets recruited for survival tasks years before it's developmentally ready. Think about what this means. While your peers are developing their sense of self through exploration and mistakes, you're developing your sense of self through utility. Your worth becomes measured by what you can do for others, how well you can manage a crisis, how invisible you can make your own needs. This creates what researchers call a false self. You construct a personality that's designed to minimize conflict and maximize safety. You become the good kid, the helpful one, the one who never complains. And everyone loves this version of you. Teachers praise you. Adults rely on you. You might even get called an old soul. But here's what no one tells you. Being an old soul at 10 years old isn't a compliment. It's a symptom. Let me walk you through the specific psychological mechanisms that develop when childhood ends too early. First, there's hypervigilance. Your nervous system becomes locked in a state of constant surveillance. Even in safe environments, even decades later, part of you is always waiting for the other shoe to drop. You scan faces for micro-expressions. You analyze tone of voice for hidden meanings. You become fluent in a language most people don't even know exists, the language of reading rooms and managing energy. This isn't paranoia. This is an adaptation. As a child, your survival genuinely depended on accurate threat assessment. The problem is, your brain doesn't automatically turn this off when the danger passes. You carry this hypervigilance into boardrooms, bedrooms, friendships. You're exhausted, and you don't even know why, because this state feels normal to you. Second, we see the development of what's called a dismissive attachment style toward your own needs. When a child's needs are consistently unmet, or worse, when expressing needs leads to punishment or abandonment, that child learns a brutal lesson. My needs are dangerous. My vulnerability is a burden. So you learn to dismiss them. You tell yourself you don't need much. You pride yourself on being low maintenance. You become the person everyone can count on while you're slowly suffocating under the weight of your own unexpressed humanity. Third, there's emotional numbing. This one's particularly insidious because it can look like maturity. You don't cry easily. You don't get excited easily. You exist in this middle zone of manageable emotions. But what's really happening is dissociation. When emotions were unsafe in childhood, when expressing joy might trigger an alcoholic parent's resentment, or expressing sadness might burden an already overwhelmed caretaker, you learn to flatten your emotional range. You learn that the safest feeling is no feeling at all. Now let's fast forward. You're 25, 30, 40 years old. That child who learned to be strong is now an adult who can't ask for help. That child who learned to read rooms is now someone who feels like a permanent outsider, watching life through glass. That child who learned that love is earned through service is now in relationships where they give everything and somehow still feel empty. You might find yourself in a pattern I call compulsive caretaking. You're attracted to people who need fixing. Not because you're codependent in the traditional sense, but because taking care of others is the only way you learn to feel valuable. It's the only way you learn to connect. The problem is, you're building relationships on an unstable foundation. You're not being chosen for who you are. You're being chosen for what you do. Or maybe you went the opposite direction. Maybe you became hyper-independent. You refuse help before it's even offered. You'd rather struggle alone than risk the vulnerability of needing someone. Because somewhere deep down, that child learned that needing people leads to disappointment, that asking for help leads to shame. So you build walls and call it strength. You isolate and call it self-sufficiency. There's also the perfectionism trap. When your worth as a child was conditional, when love felt like something you had to earn through performance, you internalize this equation. Perfect equals safe. Mistake equals abandonment. So you hold yourself to impossible standards. You work yourself to exhaustion. And even when you achieve something remarkable, there's no satisfaction, only relief. Relief that you're still worthy. Relief that you haven't been found out as the fraud you secretly believe you are. Many people who grew up too fast also struggle with what I call reverse imposter syndrome. It's not that you feel like a fraud despite being competent. It's that you feel like a fraud because you're competent. Somewhere inside, you believe that if people knew how hard you were working to hold it together, if they knew about the panic attacks in bathroom stalls, the sleepless nights, the constant fear that you're one mistake away from everything falling apart, they wouldn't be impressed anymore. They'd see the truth. That you're still that scared child, just in an adult body with better coping mechanisms. Let's get specific about how this shows up in intimate relationships, because this is where the patterns become most painful. You might find yourself in relationships where you're constantly managing another person's emotions. You're the emotional regulator, the mood stabilizer, the one who sacrifices your own needs to keep the peace. Sound familiar? It should. It's the same role you played as a child. And here's the tragic part. It feels like love to you because this is the only version of closeness you've ever known. Or you might have the opposite problem. You choose emotionally unavailable partners. Not because you enjoy the chase or because you're masochistic, but because emotional unavailability feels familiar. It recreates the dynamic you knew as a child. You give, and love remains just out of reach. It's painful, but it's predictable. And for someone whose nervous system is wired for survival, predictable pain often feels safer than uncertain love. There's also a phenomenon where you might actively sabotage good relationships. When someone treats you with genuine care, with consistency, with the kind of love that doesn't require you to earn it, your system doesn't recognize it. It feels foreign, suspicious, even dangerous. Because if you accept this love, you have to confront something terrifying. That you deserved this kind of love all along. That you didn't need to become someone else to be worthy of it. And that realization brings grief. Grief for all the years you spent believing you weren't enough just as you were. Here's where it gets really complex. As an adult, you're dealing with what psychologists call cognitive dissonance. Part of you knows intellectually that what happened wasn't okay. But another part of you has spent decades defending it. My parents did their best. They were dealing with their own trauma. Other people had it worse. I turned out okay. These aren't just neutral observations. They're protective mechanisms. Because admitting that what happened was harmful means confronting rage. Rage at the adults who should have protected you. Rage at the childhood that was stolen. Rage at having to be strong when you deserved to be held. And rage is terrifying for people who grew up too fast, because expressing anger might have led to violence or abandonment in your family. So you learned to turn that anger inward, against yourself. You became self-critical, self-punishing, believing that if you just tried harder, were better, more perfect, maybe then you'd finally be safe. This is why healing isn't just about understanding what happened. It's about feeling what happened. And for many people, that's the scariest part. Because feeling means no longer being in control. Feeling means that child you've kept locked away might finally break through. And you've spent your entire life making sure that child stays buried because you genuinely believed that your survival depended on it. So how do we heal from something that's woven into the fabric of who we are? How do we undo conditioning that started before we even had words for what was happening? The first step is what trauma therapists call breaking the spell of the false self. You have to start distinguishing between who you actually are and who you had to become to survive. This means paying attention to the moments when you feel most disconnected from yourself. When you're saying yes, but everything inside you is screaming no. When you're smiling, but you want to cry. When you're performing confidence, but you feel hollow. These moments aren't failures. They're information. They're your authentic self trying to break through the armor you built. Next, you need to practice what's called reparenting yourself. This isn't about blaming your parents or wallowing in victimhood. It's about giving yourself now what you needed then. It's about learning to validate your own feelings instead of waiting for external validation. It's about learning to comfort yourself instead of dismissing your pain. This might look like actually taking breaks instead of pushing through exhaustion. It might look like saying no without explanation or apology. It might look like letting yourself be imperfect, messy, needy, and discovering that people don't abandon you for being human. You also need to work with your nervous system directly. Because trauma isn't just stored in your thoughts, it's stored in your body. This means learning practices that help you feel safe in your own skin. Somatic therapy, breathwork, movement practices that aren't about achievement, but about connection to your body. You need to teach your nervous system that it's okay to relax now, that you're not in danger anymore. And here's a crucial piece. You need to grieve. Not just intellectually acknowledge what you lost, but actually mourn it. Cry for the child who had to be strong. Rage for the innocence that was stolen. Grieve for all the moments of joy you couldn't fully feel because you were too busy surviving. This grief isn't optional. It's not something you can think your way through or bypass it with positive affirmations. It's weight that needs to be carried to the other side. One of the most powerful things you can do is literally rewrite the narrative you've been carrying about yourself. The story isn't I grew up fast and became strong. The story is I was forced to grow up fast as a survival response, and now I'm learning that I deserve more than survival. The story isn't I'm just independent. The story is I learned that I couldn't depend on anyone, and now I'm learning to trust. The story isn't I'm just naturally good at taking care of others. The story is, I learned that my value came from what I could do for others. And now I'm learning that I'm valuable simply for existing. These shifts might seem small, but they're revolutionary because they move you from a place of defending what happened to a place of acknowledging the truth. And only from truth can real healing begin. If you recognize yourself in this, if you've felt seen in ways that are uncomfortable, that's good. That discomfort is your authentic self saying, finally, someone understands. You didn't ask to grow up too fast. You didn't volunteer to be the strong one, the responsible one, the one everyone could count on. That was thrust upon you in a moment when you had no choice. But here's what's different now. You do have a choice. You can choose to stop performing strength and start being honest. You can choose to stop managing everyone's comfort and start honoring your own. You can choose to stop earning love and start accepting it. Will it be easy? Absolutely not. There will be days when you backslide into old patterns. Days when being vulnerable feels impossible. Days when you wonder if healing is even worth it. But I promise you this. On the other side of this grief, on the other side of finally feeling what you've been running from, there's a version of you that's been waiting your entire life to emerge. The child you are deserved better. The adult you are deserves better. And the person you're becoming deserves the chance to live a life that isn't just about surviving, but about actually thriving. You've been strong your whole life. Maybe it's time to see what happens when you let yourself be soft, when you let yourself need people, when you let yourself rest without guilt. Because healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about finally becoming yourself. The self that existed before the world demanded you be something else. That self is still there, waiting, and it's never too late to bring them home.